Is Jayden Maiava USC's cancer cure?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download it, it's going to be free, and the show's always going to appreciate your support. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers, you can place a $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. If your first $5 bet wins, visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, quarterback one, Jayden Maiava, he spoke to the media after practice Wednesday. And he wasn't up there real long, about 6.5 minutes answering the questions, roughly. And he was talking about how we found out he's going to be starting, how excited he was, yada yada yada. But he did have a really interesting quote. I'm going to get to that momentarily. But he explained how he heard about becoming the starter. It happened after the team meetings Monday this week, and they got done watching the film, the recap, and I guess Coach Riley asked him to come into the office, and they spoke privately, and Jayden said, that's just between me and Coach Riley, what was said between us. But obviously, I was excited. My family is excited, and I hope everybody's on the same page as I am. We just want to win games. Now, I won't say that Jayden is uncomfortable answering questions in front of the media. He handled it well. Don't get me wrong. But my first really quick instant takeaway is when Jayden was talking about how he has to earn the trust in the locker room and building chemistry with the wide receivers, what it's going to take. And it starts with his actions, but he also stressed that he needs to be more vocal. So I don't know. He's not really so much an introvert, but you kind of get the sense that Jayden's not a big outspoken guy, kind of on the shy side, maybe a little bit. When you're starting quarterback, you got to be a little bit more outspoken, a little bit more vocal, not just willing to lead by example, but pointing the finger when necessary, whether it's at yourself or at your teammates. So I think that's what he was referring to there. And then obviously, developing that chemistry with the wide receivers, that's going to be huge. Yeah, he is very confident that the support is there from his teammates as well as the staff. And he talked about how he's embraced the process of being the backup and, being the backup to Miller Moss. He was asked, how did you kind of go about that this season? And he said, you got to fall in love with the process. That way in order to enjoy everything that happens after that. So being the backup, understanding the process, learning the role, and then when his time comes, now he gets to enjoy the fruits of the labor. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show, the cure for cancer. I'm still trying to kind of figure out this analogy, but he's literally putting himself up there as the cure for cancer or whatever is causing USC's offense not to produce the way it should be. I don't think his intent was to throw Miller Moss under the bus, but he said this. He was asked about transferring to USC, and this was right after Miller Moss had a really good Holiday Bowl. So a few weeks later, he made the decision he's going to come. And he said there's only so much that he can control, like his attitude. Quote, you're either the cure or you're the cancer, So like all I try and do is be the cure for the team. Again, really interesting analogy. And I don't think he meant any ill will per se. But that's cancer's a bad thing. Usually you don't want to compare yourself to cancer. I understood where he was going with this. Just seemed a little awkward. Again, he's getting used to handling the media. But keep in mind, he did do this for a year at UNLV as their starting quarterback. So it's not like he's new with the cameras in his face after practice or after games. He did try and keep his answers brief, kind of what he can bring to the offense these last few weeks of the season. He said, number one, accountability. And to be the best teammate he can be for his teammates, the best thing I can do for this team is to put them in the best situation to go win games. I'm going to lay my life on the line for the team. I'm going to be a brother's keeper, and I hope they do the same. Really interesting right there. So the takeaway is he's going to do everything in his power, sacrifice his body, whatever it takes to make sure this team is in the best situation to be successful. I think my favorite answer that he offered was, when he's talking about going to the season as the backup and waiting patiently. Again, he said, you've got to fall in love with the process. So that way you can enjoy everything that happens after the fact. He also said, what he learned from Miller so far, just kind of standing on the sideline, watching Miller in the locker room, performing the game. So now Jayden gets to kind of enjoy everything that goes along with being the quarterback, being the starting quarterback. But he did pay a really nice compliment to Miller. He said when he was asked what he's learned from watching from the sideline, quote, definitely the decision making, referring to Miller, that he's made on the field. He's a very genius quarterback. He's very intelligent. He just does the right job making the right decisions situationally. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, maybe that's why you're playing, is because Miller's decision making hasn't been, and I'm using finger quotes, genius on the field. Teammates are never going to throw their teammates under the bus. Nevertheless, he was looking for the right answer. Maybe all of his decisions on the field haven't been great. Remember, that's why he's the backup now. It's those untimely interceptions. So again, I know Jayden was looking to try and be complimentary and focus on the positive, which is Miller is a very cerebral quarterback, high IQ guy. I think that's where he was going with this. And Coach Riley did say that most of Miller's decision making this year has been good. The decisions that Miller's made on the field aren't the reasons why USC's lost the game. Well, that's debatable. Again, I'm not saying the reason USC lost is because of Miller, but when you try and peel back the layers and you start talking contextually and you get into the nuance of things, there have been decisions that Miller's made that have made winning harder, more difficult for the team. But yeah, I agree with Jayden. I agree with Coach Riley. Miller is not the reason why USC is sitting at 4-5. There's plenty of fingers to point. You can point one at this guy, but there's still going to be three pointing back at whoever's pointing the finger. So that's why we're not going there. Others after practice who spoke, Kyron Hudson, Woody Marks, they offered their support for Jayden. Kyron wasn't giving up anything. He basically said, when you asked Kyron, what does Jayden do differently than Miller? And I swear Kyron must have said it 3 times. Jayden's going to be Jayden. So take from that what you will. He was asked what he brings to the table. It was obvious that Kyron really didn't want to answer those types of questions. If he and Miller are really tight. So I'm sure this is kind of a difficult time for Kyron Hudson. He sees not just his teammate, but his friend going to the bench, guy who's been, throwing him the ball all season long. Woody Mark said he wasn't surprised. That was very much a coach speak type of answer. He tried to be diplomatic about it. Saying, he doesn't really notice during practice because Miller and Jayden are constantly rotating. Again, nice guy answer. Woody did say that it'll probably sink in more when they line up to play against Nebraska in a couple weeks. So, that's how the players are trained to deal with the media. They're not going to tell you what you want to hear. Very few are going to speak their mind. They're going to toe the company line. Very few guys are going to be like Jamil Muhammad or Eric Gentry, who are comfortable enough, who have been around long enough to say, "Hey, you know what? This is how I feel." I don't think it's because they know that their playing time isn't going to be affected by what they say, but younger guys tend to be a little bit more cautious. So with Woody, he's not one of the younger guys, but he's a consummate team player. And again, these guys aren't going to throw their teammates under the bus. So if you're looking for, something, a spark or, something negative to kind of latch on to, don't anticipate that happening. It's not going to. We got more to talk about, Jayden Maiava, Miller Moss. And what happens if Coach Riley decides to go to a 2-quarterback system these next 3 games? We're going to talk about the next segment. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhoodgold.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. You're halfway into the NFL season. Are you ready to tackle the second half of the season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook? Right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So let's say you have a hunch. Guess what? You're in the middle of the game. You can come check out the latest stats. You want to check out live play-by-play? Pick up your phone, look at it. You can do it right there. You want to place some more bets? You're right there on FanDuel.com. Join today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let me ask you this. What are your expectations? What do you anticipate is going to happen with Jayden? Is he going to play the whole game against Nebraska? I think the last thing you want is your quarterback looking over his shoulder, after a mistake. And mistakes are going to happen. I mentioned it on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC. I really hope the fans are patient. They allow Jayden some grace period, a little latitude to get comfortable, let the game slow down a little bit. Because look, starting and coming in during garbage time, 2 completely different mindsets. When you come in during garbage time, blowout game, there's less stress. Obviously, you're starting. You don't want to make a mistake. You're trying to be perfect, even though you probably shouldn't. Just play within yourself. Don't try and do too much. That's the risk. I think everybody's looking at is Jayden trying to do more than what he's capable of doing. Stay within himself. So maybe that's what Kyron Hudson was talking about. Jayden's going to be Jayden. So let me ask these 2 questions. How will you feel if all of a sudden the run game gets emphasized more with Jayden behind center? I'm not talking about the run game with Jayden taking off, carrying the ball. I anticipate that happening. I'm talking about a real concerted effort of more than 9 rushing attempts in the first half against Nebraska. Remember, that was the number against Washington on the road. Still cannot understand that. USC passes the ball 69% of the time on the road and runs it just 31% of the time. That stat still is just flashing in my face. I cannot get rid of it. Anyways, everyone wanted USC to run the ball more when Miller Moss was the quarterback. Lean into that run game that's, getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry, depending on who's carrying the ball. If it's Woody Marks, he carries it more often. So statistically, his number comes down a little bit, but he was still picking up close to 6 yards a pop. And Quentin Joyner was well above that. I digress. What I'm looking for in the next game is Jayden's decision making under pressure. Is he willing to stand tall? Is he going to take a hit to deliver that ball downfield? Or is he going to, his first inclination going to be to take off and run when the play is breaking down? I think you're probably going to see a little bit of both. Natural instinct. If you've got the ability to take off and run, that kind of kicks in survival mode. I personally think Jayden's going to have a strong game against Nebraska, despite the Huskers being pretty good defensively, especially against the run. I think I said it on yesterday's episode. I would think Nebraska would want to force Jayden to beat them with his arm. Now, I did a little bit more research, and USC is averaging almost 300 yards per game passing, 291 and a half yards per game. Call it 292. The Huskers, meanwhile, they're allowing 308 yards per game through the air. So maybe they want to be careful on how much they want to test Jayden's ability and USC's wide receivers. And remember, last week, UCLA went into Lincoln, Nebraska, and Nebraska allowed Ethan Garbers, not the greatest passing quarterback, 220 yards. USC has a better passing game than UCLA. And UCLA put up 220 on the road against Nebraska. Maybe that's because Nebraska was focusing on the Bruins' ground game. Here's the thing. You never know what you're going to get from a new quarterback. And technically, Jayden's not a new quarterback. He's got a year starting experience at UNLV. He's been in the program now at USC for almost a full season. So this isn't his first rodeo. Now, it'll be his first starting gig at USC. And starting quarterback at USC is a little bit different than starting quarterback at UNLV. Not knocking the Rebels. But, again, it's USC. It's not UNLV. Question number 2. What if Riley decides to use Miller Moss situationally? Like we were all kind of hoping, anticipating Jayden would be used this season? I don't know if you're going to see that in this game. Now, I'll tell you why. Because there's no way. Number one, you're not going to put him in a blowout. You're not going to say, all right, Miller, game's out of control. USC's winning by 4 or 5 touchdowns. Go clean up. You don't do that to your former starter. Not in this game. But do you think he comes in for a series or 2? I don't. I think you're gonna ride or die with Jayden in this game, regardless of what the results are. You kind of have to see how he reacts, when things are going well, when things are going bad, and situational football. How does he react after a turnover? Not necessarily him, but after a turnover. Is he able to be that spark and generate the offense to go again? A lot of things to be looking for. Oh, but again, what happens And again, I'm not hoping for it, and I don't think it's going to happen. But what happens if Jayden goes in, starts, and just has a terrible game? All of a sudden, now USC's down 28 to something, 28-7. How long do you allow him to continue before you say, you know what, Miller, go fix it? Does that happen? I don't know. Hit me up. Let me know what you think. Hit me up in the comments section. Tell me what you think. How is Coach Riley going to let this play out depending on the situation in the game? If USC's winning big, I don't think you're going to see Miller. If you do, it'll be for a series situationally. But again, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he comes in a blowout situation either. That's a fine line that Coach Riley's going to have to dance. So we'll see. You got 3 games left. Are you going all in with Jayden for the rest of the year? I guess is the question. And then after the season, what happens with the quarterback? Guys, gals, sometimes those intimate moments, they happen spontaneously. You're thinking nothing's going to happen, and all of a sudden something's happening. Guys, you always want to be ready to perform in the bedroom. HIMS provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online. There's no need for that uncomfortable doctor visit. You don't have to kind of sit there on the table going through any of the tests. You're just going to answer some questions. Go online. It's real easy. And if you're prescribed, your medication is going to ship directly to you. It's going to be discreet packaging, and it's going to ship for free. No insurance is needed. Everything is one low price. Everything from the treatments to your ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. Products mentioned are chewable, compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Prices vary based on product and subscription plan. All right, so we've been talking about Jayden Maiava for the last couple days. Let's talk about the defense just for a few minutes before we get out of here. We know the future quarterback is changing. Well, I think we need to say the same thing on defense. It looks like the shift to the younger guys is happening. It's transitioning slowly. Again, we talked about it briefly on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, how Coach Riley said some moves have been made that haven't received the attention or the publicity that, making the move from Miller Moss to Jayden Maiava is. Some of you hit me up in the comments section. Well, what about Makai? I talked about Makai Lemon taking over at kickoff return. I don't have to mention it every 5 minutes, guys, okay? Pay attention. It's free. Cost you nothing. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, there have been some more moves. And again, this is where I think Coach Riley was talking about. Here's the snap count just on the defensive line in the last game against Washington. Gavin Meyer, 51 snaps. Braylon Shelby, 42. Devin Tompkins, 42. Sam Green, 35. Jamil Muhammad, 32. Cameron Fountain jumped up to 30. Nate Clifton, he played 23 snaps on a bad ankle. Kobe Pepe, 17. Elijah Hughes, 10. This number is kind of shocking to me. Jide Abasiri, 2 snaps. I really hope Jide's red shirt isn't being burned this year for 2 snaps per game. Make the decision. Are you going to use him for the rest of the year or are you not? I don't think you want to burn a red shirt if you're only going to play a guy less than 5 snaps. Not worth it. But you look at Gavin Meyer, Bear Alexander, quitter, Jamil Muhammad, Nate Clifton, maybe Anthony Lucas. All those guys are gone after the season. I said maybe Anthony Lucas. But Gavin Meyer, senior. Bear Alexander, he's definitely gone. Jamil Muhammad, senior, gone. Nate Clifton, gone. Hopefully Anthony Lucas wants to stick around for another year. Kobe Pepe, he's another veteran who has another year of eligibility left. But outside of those Lucas and Pepe, are you satisfied with the development of, let's say, Braylon Shelby, production wise? He still looks like one of the first guys off the bus. And I know USC hasn't been getting the quarterback pressures and the sack numbers you want from the defensive ends. They're getting a little bit better. But don't you think Braylon Shelby should probably be a little bit more disruptive in the backfield, at least statistically? I hate to say, is he turning in? He looks better than Corey Foreman, but you're starting to get that vibe. When is he going to flash? When's he going to pop? Don't forget, next year he's a junior. I love the way Cameron Fountain's starting to come along. Each game, he's getting better and better. You're starting to recognize number 49 making plays, pushing guys around. I'm still not sure why Elijah Hughes didn't get on the field earlier this season, but he's starting to see the field a little bit more towards the end. Got a high motor, nonstop. Type of player that you think Coach Henney would really love, really appreciate. Sam Green, Devin Tompkins, they're doing the most with their playing time. They've seen their snap count numbers increase, and they've really been productive. Devin Tompkins said after practice Wednesday that what he's learned about himself is the sky's the limit now that he knows the staff has the confidence to play him big minutes. So the more they play him, the more comfortable he's out there, and the more confident he's playing. And it's starting to show. So on the front line, you got those guys. You got a couple guys coming in. You got Floyd Boucard, the defensive tackle from Miami. Gus the Bus Cordova. Hayden Lowe. Got some good young guys coming in as well to back up these guys. And then at linebacker, it's going to be young next year, but uber talented. You got Desmond Stevens, Jaden Walker, Elijah Newby, who they are redshirting this year. Each of them, though, will be in their second year in the system. And with Matt Entz coaching them up. Hopefully, Eric Gentry wants to play college ball for another year. Getting him back would be huge. Is Rajon Davis going to be part of the future? Is he going to be one of the veteran leaders? Because after Eric Gentry, if he comes back, that's it, right? Maybe Anthony Beavers Jr.? And then in the secondary, again, really bright future next year going forward. Zion Branch, Christian Pierce, Marcellus Williams, Marquise Gallegos, Braylon Conley, Malachi Crawford. You never hear me mention the name. Remember the name Isaiah Rubin. Big cornerback, just like Crawford. Rubin's not as big as Crawford. He's like 6'4", but Rubin's up there. He's like 6'1", 6'2". So again, a lot of size in the secondary. It's going to be much younger than they are this year. So the future is bright on defense, without a doubt. I'd like to see them really shine these last 3 games. Carry the team. We'll see what happens. We know we got a new starting quarterback. We still got a whole nother week to go before USC hosts Nebraska. USC's on a bye this week. USC men's basketball, they take on Idaho State Thursday. If you're watching this episode, get out to Galen Center. Support the team. They need it. Let's see them get to 2-0. All right, I'll be back with another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow. That's what we do 5 times a week. Probably have some post-game reaction from the basketball game. I'll definitely have a Friday rant. So, till that next episode, everyone, you know what to do.